people don't want stock photos. They don't want meme. Well, that's not true. You can do memes, but you want them in a way that is relatable to your industry. Graphics, like infographics and a lot of text on an image, not going to do well on Instagram. So instead, we want photos like taken on your smartphone. They don't have to be DSLR, heavily edited professional photos, but we want real photos, ideally photos with people in them. People connect with people. So we want photos that showcase who your business is, what you do. And when I say who your business is, the people, they want to see that component. So photos are still great, but we want to get away from text heavy. Keep all your text in the caption, just a great photo or 2 or 3 words on the photo alone.
Exit.
All right, Jen, good to have you on the Exit 5 podcast. For people who haven't met you before or haven't hung out with you to talk about Instagram, who are you and what do you do?
So I am Jenn Herman. It's Jen with 2 N's. And I've been doing this, talking Instagram, social media for over a decade now. I started a little hobby blog back in 2013, and it was Jen's trends in social media. And so it was writing about what was going on in social media, all platforms and that sort of thing. And in the process, there was this little app called Instagram that all my friends were on. And I was like, oh, another platform. But I was like, if I'm going to write about trends in social media, I kind of have to embrace this thing called Instagram. So I started playing with it and I fell in love with it as a user. I loved the photography and the filters and the interaction, the community. It was such a fun platform, but there was nobody talking about how to use it for business. Everything was, at the time, use filters and use hashtags, but there was no strategy. And so I took this little blog that I had and I started blogging every week about Instagram tactics. I would try things. I would be very scientific and I would do case studies and I would just see what worked. And the more I did it, the more I blogged about it, I started getting picked up to speak on podcasts, and over the years became now the forefront expert on Instagram marketing. If you ask ChatGPT, they will tell you I am the best. So it's one of these things that I've built into a business. It's built into a brand. It's built into a career that I love, and I wouldn't change it for anything. But it was very much a circumstance of life. It was not something I planned to do for sure.
Hold on, who is an Instagram? What should I say? Who is the Instagram marketing expert I should use for my business? Marketing expert I should use for my business. What year did you start that blog in, by the way?
2013.
And it's crazy to think about how much Instagram as a platform has evolved, right? Like when you started writing about Instagram, it was very much
there was
photos.
Only photos. There weren't even videos.
and now is that the primary, is video the primary thing that you talk about? Obviously we'll get into that, but when you think of Instagram in your head now, do you think video is the leading piece of that?
I don't. I mean, Reels really are such a big component of what we do on Instagram. Obviously, it's moved to that environment, but most, Instagram diehards still think of a photo. We still think of it as a photo-based platform. People still look at it, from going to the feed and seeing photos and those sorts of things. And then, now we've got Reels and stories, and it's definitely evolved, but it is still photo-based.
All right. ChatGPT 4 came with the receipts. Jenn Herman, she's a social media consultant and focuses specifically on Instagram. She's known for her deep dives into Instagram's functionalities and her ability to tailor strategies to different business sizes. Awesome.
I love the proof source in live.
Heck yeah. We got to do that.
I know, but put it out there. You better bring the receipts, right?
Definitely. Yeah. There's a lot of people that don't have receipts today. So that's great. All right. So let's talk. I want to talk about, so our audience is B2B marketers. I want to talk about Instagram specifically in this episode for marketers. I would say most of the audience is doing, there is some non-tech, but I would say most of the people are working in software companies, tech in some way. And then there's also B2B non-tech. So first of all, where would you start where would you start with Instagram? I don't know how familiar you are with this audience or if you've shared any ideas with this type of content before, but where do I start? How do I first decide if I want to pick Instagram as the channel to go after for my business.
Yeah, well, and to that point, I'm sure I'm the highest level expert that teaches Instagram for B2B. I love going to B2B conferences. I love teaching B2B for Instagram because it's one of those things people traditionally think of Instagram for B2C, right? We think of it when you've got the widget, the project, the product, the thing that you can put in your hand that you can sell somebody. We think of it from pretty pictures.
Also, for context, we mentioned this before. We're talking about 100% grass-fed organic. We're talking about organic Instagram. We're not talking about, this isn't about ads. This is organic content, and this is right in the wheelhouse. I love social media. I love content from a marketing standpoint. So this is right in our wheelhouse. Okay, so we got the best lady in the space right now. Let's go deep.
So where do we start? The first thing you need to think about is, what is your goal with using Instagram, right? So like any social media, why would you be using this for your B2B? Is it brand awareness? Are you in launch phase? Are you in startup phase? Are you in, regeneration phase? Are you 10 years into your B2B product? What is your goal? Is it sales? Are you just trying to, increase sales by 20% by using social media? Are you, like I said, looking for brand awareness? Are you looking for brand loyalists? Do you want to be working with influencers? What is the goal? And then that helps you direct where the strategy is going to go. So if you're looking for more brand awareness, it's going to be that higher level stuff, right? What does your brand do? The problems you solve, why you did it, your missions, your values, your teams, all these sorts of things that you can showcase. Whereas if you were going more after sales, you still want that component, but of course you want to be showcasing your B2B product or service in use. You want to have case studies. You want all these additional components that obviously sell the product and have a sales component to some of your content as well. But it's never going to be 100% sales on any social media platform, and especially on Instagram. There will always be those brand awareness, the behind the scenes, all of these additional components that are what people want to connect with. And one of the hardest things for B2B brands is they go, Jen, my business isn't visual. How am I supposed to create reels? How am I supposed to create photos? I don't have anything to photograph. And I always tell my clients, I'm like, imagine you had a reality TV show that came and filmed you for a day. And like, where would you go? What would you do? Who would you talk to? Think of it from that perspective. And so get the videos, get the photos, whether it's having somebody in your team take a photo of you sitting at your desk, whether it's hiring a photographer for a day, but on the phone, at the computer, in the lab, with your team in the conference room, whatever these things are that you can start to demonstrate, even if it's you just sitting at home at your home office, there's things that you are doing every day that you can showcase. It can be you literally holding your phone with something up on the screen that showcases your product or service. We want to find creative ways as if you had a camera crew following you around that you'd be putting up on TV. What does that visual look like?
I love that. I think the best social media advice that I've picked up in my experience has been Gary V's like document, don't create approach. And I think that's similar to that. That's like what you're describing there. And so that would be the lowest. I love that, like the reality show thing, like talk about what you're doing, because who is that going to attract? Like if you talk about that particular topic, like if you sell to HR professionals and you're building a product for them, you talk about that shrinks down the audience for who's going to be interested in that. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So we start, and then like, do you need to have a plan? Do you need to have a strategy? Do you need just like, can we just start like, hey, we think we want to do this. Here's why, blah, blah, blah. Let's just start. Like for me, like my platform is LinkedIn, and I tell founders like, you honestly need to just get going, just start writing, start creating content. Do you feel the same with Instagram?
Yeah, it's easy to say, we need a strategy and you should have a goal and you should have direction. And strategy is great. And I am a queen of, advocating for strategy. But often, especially in the B2B and especially in the tech space, we can get a little mired in strategy, and we're so determined to do strategy that we're not doing execution. And so it really is a matter of getting on the platform, going and seeing what your competitors are doing, going and seeing what the people you follow on Instagram are doing. Like just go be active, go figure out what gets you excited? What types of videos do you like watching? What photos, drag you in? Or, what tutorials, whether they're carousels, whether they're text or videos or those sorts of things, what is making you get excited to watch and read that content? What are your competitors doing? What's driving that engagement? Get comfortable with what is working for others, and then start thinking about, all right, well, how can I do that for me? Like, if I really love dog videos and dogs doing silly things, but like you said, but I create software for HR, how do I make them the same thing? Well, you're clearly not going to always have a dog video, but if it's cute little 15-second entertainment videos, okay, can you have cute, fun 15-second videos related to your HR software? Do you have a mascot for your company? Can you borrow your kid for a day to do cute videos, or put a dog sitting in front of a computer looking at the software? Like, what are things that you can do that spur some creativity, that you're using inspiration from the things that you enjoy or that others, are creating that you like? And get comfortable, start creating content. What you do today will not be what you do a year from now, and it will not be what you do 5 years from now. So like you said, start, get out there, create the content, and then evolve as you grow.
Let's go back to the initial strategy development for a second. Like what would you want to hear? What would a good goal be? Because I feel like oftentimes this is where we make a mistake in selecting a social media channel. Like we want to sell more stuff. Like, okay, obviously, but if you measure it from that lens, and then 3 months in, you're like, man, I listened to Jen's advice. I started posting on Instagram. We haven't made a single additional sale for our B2B product in 3 months. Like, I'm going to quit this channel. Let's talk through a scenario of like, what would a good goal be like, and maybe reasons why to select Instagram and pick that channel to go after.
First and foremost, it is about putting realistic goals. A lot of times you get somebody that comes to me and they go, Jen, we want 10,000 followers. And I'm like, okay, but why? And they're like, well, because then we'll be popular. And I'm like, but what does 10,000 followers do for you? Do 10,000 followers translate into 10,000 customers? Do 10,000 followers mean more sales, more revenue, more brand awareness? Like, what does that number do? And a lot of times you look at people or customers or clients, and you're like, you can't even serve 10,000 people. So why would you want 10,000 followers? Like, if your max capacity as a business is to create for 1,000, then having 10,000 followers may be too much. So it's not so much about the number, but it's about where are you and what do you want to go, towards from there. So if you currently, have a platform and you're servicing 500 clients, and you really want to double that over the next year, you want to get to having 1,000 clients. It's not going to be Instagram and silo. You're going to have all your other social media, your business development, and all these things. So it's not going to be just Instagram pushing towards that, but that's where you start going, okay, we want to build the awareness. We want to get more followers. And maybe you set a realistic expectation of, if you have 200 Instagram followers now, you want to get to 1,000. So you put like a realistic number on it. And then you put, related to probably more the dark social, what are you doing to build the relationships that are going to lead to, again, in the B2B space, the long-term loyalist clients? You're not over here putting up, a post. It's like, look at these amazing handbags. And it's like a spontaneous buy, and you're buying it because you're going on a trip next week and you want the handbag. These are software, right? These are, programs. These are, even if it's, manufacturing or whatever it is you're doing, these aren't spontaneous purchases. These are things that go through massive budget, constraints with your clients and all these different factors. So it's more about building the awareness, and how can you have those conversations on dark social? That's comments, direct messages, people replying to your stories, where you're fostering them and getting them into your bigger lead funnels.
Yeah, or like if you're you're maybe a marketing agency and you're selling a agency services package, right? I think for any of these examples, I think that for when I think about B2B, I've always said that like I think the best ingredient for B2B marketing is your expertise.
Yes.
What do you think about that as a content strategy for Instagram? Like let's use this channel to become a go-to resource for our customers, and let's make them smart. And so instead of this page being all about like sprinkling in your elements of like building in public and showing what the company's doing, but like, okay, we want to build a page on Instagram that people who work in HR love and are sending to all their friends and colleagues. And that could be like a funny it could be funny, it could be
Right? It could
memes
be
and
HR
real
memes.
videos, right? Like
Yeah.
that, is that like one thing, would that be a reasonable way to like develop a strategy instead of just saying like, yeah, we want 2,000 followers? It's more like, well, we think there's an opportunity here to like, to be this fun page that people follow, and we build brand affinity through
Yeah.
that page.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you're kind of speaking my love language right now. I'm the biggest proponent for education. And it is, like you said, it's one of the best ways to build a credible resource within your Instagram profile. And that's the shareable content, right? When you're putting up the tips, the tutorials, the tactics, the memes, the relatable type things in the industry, that's what people share. And that again is how you're going to build the brand awareness, grow audience, reach more people. But it builds the loyalists, right? It builds the people that say, oh, I have a question about this industry and I know this account's going to have the answer. Or if they don't have content about it, I can ask them and they're going to have the answer. And so you start to build this trust factor that when time comes, they're coming to you to be like, hey, we heard about this news article that they're changing this, regulation in the industry. Or, we're seeing this trending. Do you think this is the way the industry is going? They're going to come to you because you've created this wealth of expertise. And I always say, people on Instagram are typically there to be entertained, but that doesn't mean that because they're there to be entertained, that they don't want to be educated. And, we typically think of LinkedIn and Twitter and maybe Threads now and even Facebook for more of the education platforms. But educational content does incredibly well on Instagram as a platform.
I think that's super smart to share that, because I don't think I think there is some perception in B2B circles that like, to build a profile, to build a page on Instagram as an example, it has to be silly, or it has to be
Right.
like memes, or like you have to play to certain content types on Instagram. Like I think education and expertise is always going to win. You can have a serious page and people want that information. You could sell to accountants or legal or whatever, whatever the example is. And it doesn't have to be silly or funny. That's definitely one angle. But if that's not natural for you as a person or as a
A
brand, then
brand.
like
Yeah.
maybe that doesn't make sense. And so that's why I like to push people towards like, go with the educate, like like start with education. If you're not sure if you're going to go the funny route, like lean on education.
And that's like one of my favorite accounts for a combination of education and entertainment. Well, two of them are actually TSA, the people that make you take your shoes off at the airport, have one of the best Instagram accounts in the world.
Do they? I'm looking at it right
No,
now because I've never.
legit. I think I've directed like half of their million followers because I tell everybody about TSA, and then also National Park Services. They are both essentially, I mean, they're more government than they are B2B, but same idea. And TSA is literally dad joke central, but it's educational. So they're like, here, don't take guns onto airplanes. They'll show you like how someone hid a knife in a peanut butter container, but then they'll make a joke about nuts because it's in a peanut butter jar. Like it is witty, it is funny, but it's educational. So there's ways to kind of blend the two. And even beyond that, to your point, like I mean, you'll never find a meme on my Instagram account. I just don't do memes. It's not my world. I like them, but I don't create and communicate in that fashion. And I would say, 70% of the content on my Instagram account is education. And that's why when you go to ChatGPT and say best accounts to follow for Instagram tips, it's going to say Jenn Strentz because most of my content is based on education. And that's what I do. I mean, I speak, I teach, this is what I do, but that's what people want. They want the tips, they want those resources, and that's the highly shared content.
Yeah. Well, then like, or you mix in something like most like 90% of your content is about your business, but then like, oh, there's a picture with like your kid who was sick
Yeah,
and had the flu. And like, those are how you build trust and
the
credibility and
relatability.
become relatability. Okay. We'll get to like types of content in a minute, but I actually never asked you this. Why? So here's how I would think about it. Like, okay, we want to create a channel. So I think you can't first pick like, we want to go to Instagram. It needs to be like, work your way back up. Like, we want to build a stronger connection with our potential audience online. Okay. And so how are we going to do that? Well, most people here listening like probably are already doing LinkedIn. We want to add a second channel. We want to add a second channel. Maybe that's how we can make this really specific for somebody. All right, cool. What should that second channel be? Should it be Instagram? Well, yeah, Instagram. Okay, that could work. But what about TikTok, Jen? And what
Yeah.
about YouTube Shorts? And what about YouTube? Like, why do you have a perspective on like why Instagram and versus one of those other channels? And even if you can succeed on all those others, let's just play the Instagram game and tell people that like let's pick Instagram and make the case for that.
This is where we're going to drop stats and data. So first of all, Instagram is one of the longest standing platforms. You know, when you look at the platforms in general today, right? You look at LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter's gone through massive shifts and you can still claim Twitter. But everything else, I mean, Pinterest is there, but that's not usually as great for B2B. You know, TikTok is new, Clubhouse was new. Like we have all these things that pop up. Instagram has the longevity against something like TikTok. And I have nothing against TikTok. I don't want to see it get banned. I have nothing against TikTok as a platform, but I just want to say that all the TikTok experts I know have now become vertical video or short form video experts. They're no longer just TikTok experts because Instagram has the longevity. Instagram has the robust meta platform behind it that gives you all the interactions. It gives you the ad platform. It gives you the bandwidth across every global, market and everything like that. But you've got over 2 billion monthly active users on Instagram. So your audience is there. The largest demographic on Instagram is the 25 to 35 demographic, the second largest being the 35 to 45 demographic. So in most B2B industries, that's your target audience. That 25 to 45 are the people making the business decisions. They're the ones in that, mid to rising up to senior level management. They're the ones that are starting to hold the purse strings for the budgets. They're the ones that are out there looking for the solutions for their organizations. Your target demographic is the largest demographic on Instagram. So compared to TikTok, where it's typically a younger demographic, and even YouTube. I mean, YouTube is great. Don't get me wrong. You can take your reels and put them up on YouTube Shorts. I highly recommend it because Google's still a dominant platform, right? It's still the search engine of search engines. And if you've got YouTube Shorts, it's worth having them there. But now Instagram is actually ranking in Google search, which it never used to do until recent months, where now if you go look for something on Google, your Instagram posts, not your profile, but your Instagram posts will actually start showing up in Google search. So you have that added search advantage with your Instagram content now too.
Oh, interesting. Remember the
Right?
good old days when they used to show tweets in Google? Or maybe they do
Yes.
again now, but that's interesting. And if you're going to pick, you need to make specific content for the platform, right? Like I see companies, and I've done this myself, where if you just kind of make one generic thing and post it across all 5 channels or whatever, it doesn't really pop off. How important is it to really focus in and say, like, we're going to understand Instagram, we're going to understand what Instagram wants and create content specifically for Instagram versus do what a lot of companies do with YouTube, which is like, let's just take all our videos and put them up on a YouTube channel, and each YouTube video has, 16 views.
Yeah, totally guilty of that, by the way. I just take all my reels and I just put them on YouTube so that they're there, but
Maybe
I
something
don't
will
make
happen.
content for YouTube.
Right.
And then right, you said, like, I get no views on those, but they're on Google. But that's the thing. It really is about knowing the platform. And again, recognizing that difference in the audience, right? So if you're creating videos for 3 different platforms, if you're creating them for Google and Google Shorts or YouTube Shorts, that is you want certain search criteria, right? You want certain keywords, you want certain captions, you want the content that's going to answer the question in a certain way. If you're going for TikTok content, that's targeting a younger demographic. They're the people that probably aren't going to Google as much. So you want to put that in a context that's maybe a little less well grammared, a little less educated, a little more, quick and punchy. That doesn't mean that you can't have good quality educated content on TikTok, but you're typically going to get people that want to hear in more layman's terms. Instagram is kind of in the middle of those two, right? So you're going to have that mid-range audience, people who understand proper sentence structure, but yet who have a limited time span. When you're getting somebody on Instagram Reels, you're getting people who are still swiping very quickly. And so you kind of want to meld the two in terms of just your general content, but then there's all the editing, right? So Instagram as well is very cognizant. They're not as bad about this, but they were very bad about this in the beginning when Reels launched 3 years ago, where if you took a video that had clearly been fully formatted elsewhere and you uploaded it to Instagram and you said publish without making any edits to it, they would reduce the performance of that video because they knew you took that same video and put it on multiple platforms. Whereas if you put it on Instagram and you use an Instagram filter and you add Instagram music and you add Instagram text boxes, Instagram goes, hey, we know this content is unique to our platform. We know that this exact same piece of content isn't available anywhere else. We're going to reward you with more reach and distribution. So there's advantages to taking even just the route. Like I will film a video on my camera, on my phone, save to my camera roll, and then I edit individually to the individual platforms ideally, right? So put different, cover photo on TikTok, then I put a cover photo on Instagram, and you tailor them even though you're starting with the same root content. That will always give you better performance. But yes, it means more time and commitment to each platform.
So you mentioned TSA.
Yes.
And what was the other example you mentioned?
National Park Service.
You mentioned national parks. Let's talk about content types. Like what types of content have you found to be most effective for B2B brands? If we can give some specific examples of types of content. So go document your stuff, but what types of creative is going to work? Or would you want to go see people do?
There's kind of we'll talk about 4 key things. So there's Instagram photos, just a single post. There's Instagram carousels, Instagram stories, and Instagram reels. So when we talk photos, things to think about with your photos is, again, people don't want stock photos. They don't want memes. Well, that's not true. You can do memes, but you want them in a way that is relatable to your industry. Graphics like infographics and a lot of text on an image, not going to do well on Instagram. So instead, we want photos like taken on your smartphone. They don't have to be DSLR, heavily edited professional photos, but we want real photos, ideally photos with people in them. People connect with people. So we want photos that showcase who your business is, what you do. And when I say who your business is, the people, they want to see that component. So photos are still great, but we want to get away from text heavy. Keep all your text in the caption, just a great photo or 2 or 3 words on the photo alone. When we talk carousels are where you can have currently up to 10. They're testing doing 15 or 20 slides per carousel, but it's where when you go to Instagram and you can swipe horizontally left to right across it, and there's a series of photos and or videos in that one single post. Carousels get extra exposure. So if you go in and you look at Instagram and you see my post and it's a carousel and you do not interact with it, the next time you come back to Instagram, you're going to see my post again with the second frame from the carousel. So it's a second chance for exposure. These are really good for, again, information that you really want to get out, like launch information, new product information, because you really want to make sure people got that awareness. It's great for if you're doing events, fundraisers, things like this where you have a ton of content around a single thing and you don't want to have 14 posts and alienate and drive your audience crazy. You put them all in a carousel. So much easier. So those are incredibly powerful. They're kind of a secret sauce to success. Don't overdo the carousels because it's content saturation, but they're very valuable. Instagram stories are where we typically lag, and yet Instagram stories in general are the highest converting content on Instagram. So your feed is great. People are there. Typically, your feed is going to serve your existing audience. Your stories are only feeding your existing audience. Stories don't show up in search. Stories don't typically show up in Explore, those sorts of things. So they're serving your existing audience. And this is where we tend to let our hair down figuratively, right? We don't care about the audio. We don't care about the lighting as much because they disappear in 24 hours. Whatever, it's fine. But it's because you're doing the real, raw, authentic stuff in stories. And you can use link stickers so you can send people anywhere on the internet that you want them to go. So stories have very high conversions for most brands, especially in the B2B space. And then finally, there's Reels. And Reels, 2 things to keep in mind. Super short, under 20 seconds are top of funnel, like top of funnel brand awareness. Those are what go into Explore and recommended posts. Super short, no call to action, not trying to sell anything, brand awareness type things. Longer reels, 30 to 90 seconds, are serving your existing audience. Those typically don't show up into the recommended and explore, but those are the ones with your tutorials, your education, your value add. Those get the shares, those get the additional, value distribution, but again, are serving your existing audience. Reels in general tend to be the lowest converting content. Most people, when they're watching videos and swiping, will not leave a reel to go follow your link in bio or do that sort of thing. So,
Got it. And when you're talking about converting, it could mean like if you're trying to promote something, a
right.
newsletter sign up, a webinar, this
Yep.
event or whatever. Okay.
Exactly. That would be save those more for stories and then your feed post with send me a DM or go to the link in bio call to action.
What about like a lot of nice professional looking pages do these like manicured collections of stories? Should you do that?
So you can do they're called highlights, where you have like the bubbles on your profile.
And people will have like they'll make a logo, like a
Yeah.
Canva, like hand, or I don't know.
Yes.
There's like a logo for that. And they have these like
It's
highly manicured sections.
I like them when they're done well. Highlights can be great for things like meet the team, about us, or a quick overview of your products or those sorts of things. Keep it to only 3 or 4 highlights. And if you're going to use them, update them regularly. Nothing says, I trust this brand more than going in and seeing that thing is, 250 weeks old. You're like, say what now? So if your content in the stories highlights is more than 52 weeks old, which is a year, it's time to update the content. And we don't want 100 stories in a highlight. A lot of times people just keep adding to those highlights, but it's chronological from the first story added. So if you added the first story 4 years ago and you just keep adding to that highlight, people are never going to get to the ones from today because they're tapping through 50, 60 posts and they're all from 4, 3, 2 years ago. So you want to clean those out and keep them much more current.
What do you say to someone that would listen to this and say, well, yeah, this is great, Jen. My customers aren't on Instagram though.
Yes, they are. I can guarantee, again, with 2 million or 2 billion monthly active users, they're there. If people are on Instagram and your customer is a human, they may not be on Instagram 4 hours a day, but they are on Instagram. And whether they're logging in twice a week or twice a month, they are there. And it's a matter of creating the content that connects with why they're there. Right? Are they logging in to see their friends and family, to follow their grandkids, or, what are they doing on the platform and why are they there? And then craft your content to meet them where they are.
All right, let's make so that's crazy. That's crazy. 2 billion monthly active users. That's confirmed. That is an actual stat. Jenn doesn't mess around. We've already fact checked. She's a real gangster. Okay, we love LinkedIn. This audience loves LinkedIn. Do you know how many? There's 310 million monthly active users on LinkedIn.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So we're talking about 5 or 6x the opportunity here.
Yes.
And people are there. Now, the trick is, though, you got to meet them where they're at. And so, like you said earlier, most people are not opening Instagram to like think business. And so you have to really think about what is your angle going to be. But I wanted to have you on this podcast because I think you got to, as a marketer today, every channel is saturated.
Yeah.
So they say, right?
Yeah, 2 billion people, it's saturated.
but the opportunity is to think from a company standpoint. Okay. And by the way, while you were talking just now, I was like trying to find like good B2B Instagram profile examples. All of the examples that people write about and share are like either old or humongous companies,
like Adobe,
John Deere, MailChimp, Boeing, FedEx. Yep. To me, the reason I wanted to record this conversation is because if you're a marketer today, you're trying to do more with less and you're trying to find these opportunities. One of the things you can do is find the gaps, find the pockets of underpriced attention, I think is to steal another Gary V-ism. And so like there's 2 billion monthly active users on Instagram. You sell HR software. None of your competitors have done anything on Instagram. Should we go play in another crowded channel, or should we go and try to like build something here? That's why I wanted to do this. It's like, oh, maybe this is the push that you need to like, let's go take a bet and let's go try to build something out on Instagram.
And that's the thing, right? Like This is why I love teaching Instagram for B2B, because most B2B brands aren't there, or if they're there, they're not doing it well, right? Like, we're not thinking of it from that kind of smaller B2B business. We're thinking of it when you research these things, like you said, we're looking at Boeing and Adobe and MailChimp and these massive organizations that have teams running their social media. And, you may be in your B2B space, you're like, well, I am the HR coordinator and the marketing expert. You might be the CEO and the marketing, so you're running all these multiple hats, and to have to do another platform, another thing. And Jen's over here telling you to do Instagram. You're like, I can't bring myself to do it. But it is the chance to stand out against your competitors and meet your audience where they are, because they're on Instagram.
Let's talk about the personality of Instagram. I feel like if you see a lot of Instagram accounts or TikTok accounts, it is often like, Jen becomes the face of X brand. In a world where there might be lots of turnover at a company, or someone doesn't want to be the face, do you have suggestions on strategy for like, if it should be Jen in the content? Should Jen be like the voice of the company? Should it be more like Jen's behind the scenes creating and curating this content? Do you know what I'm trying to articulate?
Yeah. And this all depends on your brand, right? At this point, you've probably done some sort of, brand development, your brand tone, voice, style, colors, avatar, all these sorts of things. And you know what that is, right? Like I always say, I'm like, you might be like that super chill surfer type brand. Like you have beanbags in the lobby and you do craft beer, sessions every weekend. Or you may be the super polished, pencil skirt wearing, stiletto wearing type, very polished professional organization. Whatever that is, that's what you want your brand to translate on social media and on Instagram. So if someone was to walk into essentially your office or come into one of your Zoom calls and everyone's sitting around in board shorts and t-shirts, but your Instagram channel is all corporate jargon and super stodgy professional, they don't correlate, right? We want that brand to match what is happening in your actual brand in terms of personality. Now, you can have faceless videos, you can have faceless content. You don't have to have a face of your brand. The TSA account, one man runs that entire account. We've never seen his face. You don't know who he is, but he's obviously the king of dad jokes. But this is part of their brand. It's become how they are known on social media. And but you never see his face. He's the one creating all the content, and he's the one, I mean, I'm sure it's run through various, authorities and various components at different levels, but they've created that brand style. And you can do the same. You pick up whatever that, we're going to, talk, and we're going to use these types of, lingo, and we're going to talk to this general, audience. And then you're going to write your captions. And if you do voiceovers on your audio, you choose who's going to do your voiceovers. Or you do the text to speech where you put in the caption and then you use the AI voices that do the text to speech, and they all start to sound the same, but they're trendy. People like them. Like, there's a million ways that you can do this where you don't have to have a single face of the brand if you're worried about turnover, or if your CEO is not the best person to put on camera, because we've all had those, that's fine. Don't make the CEO the voice or the face of the brand. It's okay to do other things that, showcase the entire team, or just make it faceless.
How would you think about measuring this as you get going? Before this, I did a podcast with somebody where we talked about LinkedIn, and he's built a following there, and he basically was like, I wanted to do this, but I had to basically not think about measuring it and just kind of commit to creating content for 12 months. And now I'm reaping the rewards of this. How should somebody think about LinkedIn, knowing that it's very easy to be like, Instagram,
Yeah.
knowing that it's very easy to like do it for 3 weeks and be like, this isn't working, and quit it?
So my biggest thing I tell people when it comes to Instagram is you need 6 to 8 weeks to test anything. And that means 6 to 8 weeks of consistent posting. That doesn't mean you posted like twice in 6 weeks and you call that a test bet. Like that's, and just for record, I have 2 science degrees, so I'm a total data nerd. I actually love to geek out on the science, the insights that comes behind the platform. But so you want to do like a 6-week test. So if you're going to post a reel every week for 6 weeks, now you have data. You don't get to do a reel and go, oh, well, that didn't work. Reels don't work for us. You need to have enough of them to say, okay, our long form reels do better than short form reels, or our really short reels are great for reach, but not so great for engagement. These sorts of things are what you need to test over time. Same thing goes for feed posts. And I tell people, I do Instagram audits regularly. I'm actually doing one right now for a medical organization. And it's, you go through and it's trying to pick apart these things, and you look at things and I'm like, okay, so random fun fact, the color green works well for you. Like, you don't always know what's going to be what translates to your audience, and you don't have that information until you do the actual data set, and look at how your content is doing. So to your previous guest, point, create the content, get out there and start doing it. Start seeing what's working. What is driving reach primarily is the biggest metric of success on Instagram is reach, because people may swipe through a carousel and not throw up a like, may not share, may not save, but they consumed it. People may click ... more and read your whole caption, but not take any other metric that we can measure. And Instagram does not give us a lot of metrics. So reach tells you how many people saw that post. And if you find out my baseline is a reach of 1,000 and you start getting posts that are reaching 2,000, 3,000, those are the positive outliers. What was different about those that you can recreate? When you get something that has an average reach of 400 when your baseline is 1,000, well, what did you do wrong? Was it not valuable content? Did you go off script? Was it the wrong, time of year, month, whatever? Like, you start picking apart over time, but you have to have content to get a baseline.
I love that, because it makes it so like you have to keep creating content.
Yes.
And then you might not know the 12-month content strategy because you're just looking at these little pockets of like, oh, we made this reel. This reel had 2,000 views. We've never made a reel that had 2,000 views. Let's blow up the content strategy. And then it just becomes this game of like recreate the hits, right? Like, that's what's so valuable about social media from a business standpoint. As you know, it just becomes this feedback loop. And but the challenge is you have to accept that, right? Don't play this. Don't get on Instagram to be like, well, we've been doing it for 4 weeks and we have no sales.
Right. And you have to think, again, like to your point about the year, like it takes a long time to get multiple years worth of data. And you'll start to learn over time, oh, we always get a really low engagement and really low distribution in May. Why? Oh, well, this. Or if most of your customers are based in Europe and they all disappear and go off on vacation for a month at a time because your primary audience is European, does your engagement go up or go down? Right? Because they're on vacation, they're maybe on their phones more. Maybe they're on vacation, so they're not working, they're not on their phones. Like, you start to see these ebbs and flows, and then you craft your content around that as well. If you know that they're going to have low engagement in the month of June, don't run a sales campaign in June. But you don't know that until you're creating the content that you can then adapt, as you go forward.
All right. Awesome. Jenn, people should go and check out your Instagram. She's Jen's_trends, Jen's trends, 2 N's, Jenn. There you go. That's genius branding on your own. You're already unique because you're
Jen, yep.
Yeah, 2N Jenn. And then go connect, go send her a message or connect with her on LinkedIn. This is great. I got a ton out of this. Makes me want to be like, man, we got to go revisit our strategy
Right?
for Exit 5 with LinkedIn, Jenn. But thank you for doing this. I hope somebody sends you a message in a couple of weeks and it's like, yeah, I listened to this episode with Jenn and we're gonna go and try something for Instagram. I do think it's, even though there's 2 billion monthly users, I think it's actually still untapped for B2B, and you must feel this way all the time. It's why you create content around it, right?
Absolutely. It's totally viable. It's totally valuable. Again, you're not going to reach, hundreds of thousands of people just by posting something. Not that you can't. You can go viral. I have a client that her first reel went absolutely viral, has like 300,000 views on it. And she was like, what is this? And of course, she's never done it again since. But you can reach those mass audiences, but really it's about reaching your audience where they are and being able to connect with them in the right way.
Well, and that's what's cool about the opportunity for B2B, right? We're not talking about like selling, t-shirts here. It's like you might only need to get 2 customers.
You get a couple leads off Instagram and you could have, your coffer filled for, your sales goal. It's, when you start looking at what those translations are, one lead could be a, $100,000 client.
Yep. All right, Jen, thanks for hanging out with us on the Exit 5 podcast. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. I'm now following all your stuff, and I'll be tuned in to tune up our Instagram.
Exit.